Hello and welcome back to the Inspired Connection podcast with myself, Carly D, and the lovely Kat B. And today joining us, we have Pam. Now, this is the first time we have met Pam, so I'm going to pass over to Kat actually to do the introduction.
Yeah, hi everybody. Good to see you. So this is Pam Pearson. Pam Pearson is one of my students. Pam and I first initially started working together with her son when her son Cameron passed to Spirit World. And Pam's going to tell you a little bit about Pam shortly. But the reason that she's here today is for completely different reasons. Pam decided to hijack one of our teaching sessions. I teach Pam how to connect to her son directly. I'm a great believer that it's lovely to have a mediumship connection, but nothing is better than having the connection, two-way connection, direct yourself. And that way it proves as well, evidentially, that we can all have connection. And that's what really the Inspired Connection podcast is about. We want to show you, actually, through the experiences that other people are having, that you might then look a little bit deeper at your own connection with your loved ones in spirit, as well as and the way that they connect with people around us here living. So Pam had come on for a standard teaching session. We were doing a one-to-one online. And suddenly Cameron started inspiring Pam to talk about Irene, who is the Vice President of Helping Parents Heal. And if you look back at the previous podcast, you will see that we were interviewing Irene the day that Pam felt inspired to talk about her, which made me chuckle because Pam had no awareness that I was talking to Irene that day. So the fact that she'd started talking about her was not part of our normal conversation. I don't think we'd ever spoken about her before. So it made me kind of chuckle. But when she said, I need to ask you about number plate signs and talk about number plate signs, I started to look through them more because within the interview Lee and I had with Irene that day, we had been talking about the number plate 1010 and we're going 10 out of 10. And 1010 is a really significant date for Carly's loved one in spirit, but it's also Irene's daughter Carly, it's her day of birth. So we were talking about the importance of number plates and signs and how they've got my attention that day. So Pam suddenly felt inspired to talk about number plates, and she started writing off loads of stories about number plates and real enthusiasm about number plates. And I was like, okay, Cam, I get it. You want to be on the podcast. I'm with Carly in spirit. So we decided to change, realizing that his little heart was full of gold. I decided that we would change the teaching session. And so I said to Pam, let's ask Spirit about signs and synchronicities and the power of those signs. So we chose the word power and we started to work on it. And what Cameron did next was really interesting. So before we tell the story, I'm going to let Pam introduce you to her son and tell you a little bit about him. And then we're going to talk about the teaching session. What, sort of pull from that story, what was really significant that Cameron shared with us, because I think it will really help you all understand how our loved ones in spirit are trying to use these signs and synchronicities to grab our attention and to support not just ourselves and our living connection and inspired connection together, but actually the community as well, or work together as a team, because it's kind of really cool. He wanted in on the act. So Pam, welcome. It's so lovely to see you today, my darling. Tell me, how are you? And tell me where you are. Where are you in the world?
Okay, so I'm in Virginia in the United States, where I've been my whole life. So I've lived and worked here all along.
And tell us a little bit about Cameron, because you struggled with fertility, is that right? And you struggled to have a child. So Cameron, you came back through.
Right, I never made a permanent connection with a mate. So I'd always promised myself that if I got to a certain age and hadn't had the happily ever after, then I was going to do it on my own. So that's what I did. So using the help of science, I conceived Cameron when I was 42, almost 43. He was born with some birth defects, but he was, so he had numerous surgeries, but, everything turned out and he became a very loving, sweet, but wide open child, very bright and the joy of my life. But it was just us. So we had a very close connection. There was never a father involved. And so, I was playing both parts and we were very close. When he was 15, and earlier than that. So when along puberty, he started having some issues with anxiety and depression, and that was sort of off and on. And he struggled some with that and with school. And then in September of 2020, when he was 15, he passed tragically. And from that point, first year is basically a blur, but there's some things started happening that made me curious and sort of were like breadcrumbs to lead me on this path of a spiritual journey and trying to figure out how to get to him where he is now.
Can I ask, what were your belief systems before, Pam?
Okay, so I was brought up Christian, so I've believed in heaven and an afterlife, and that, I would talk to my dad sometimes. He passed right when Cameron was 3 months old. He had cancer and passed, but I didn't think about it so much because the order of deaths was different, and he had cancer for a long time, and so I felt he was in a better place, and didn't every once in a while if I needed some sort of mechanical type help, I might say, Dad, can you help me figure it out? But not really seriously considering where he was or what he was doing. But then after Cameron, I definitely tried to figure that out.
Well, bless you. I did hear a story, actually. I'm laughing at the fact that you were saying you were going to ask him to help you mechanically. I did hear a story about somebody who did do that, and then a mechanic was sent to the house. That's an inspired connection if ever there was one. Unprompted, didn't have to use the phone. Somebody just turned up and said, I'm a mechanic. Do you need some help?
Wow.
So I
He didn't help me that much, but just like if I was looking for a screwdriver or something, I can't think. But yeah, so I didn't believe. I believed in heaven and I believed in an afterlife, but I didn't think so much about it before Cameron.
Okay, brilliant. So going to our session, we've met, we've had readings together, we're teaching, and this day you suddenly start talking about Irene, and you start talking about number plates and asking me full-on questions about number plates and signs, and wanting to go through all the signs that you'd experienced, which was kind of funny in itself, given that we were talking about signs and synchronicities. So I said to you, okay, put the word power in your head and ask Cameron to give you an object, and I just watch that object and what he does with it. Share with me, Pam, your experience on that day, and I'll chip in if there's bits that you forget.
Okay. So yeah, the object that popped in when you said thinking about power was a Hot Wheels car, which is just like a little kid metal die-cast car. But Cameron had these orange Hot Wheels tracks, and he would put them down the stairs, and you could build loop-de-loops with them. And so I thought of the power of the momentum required to do the loop-de-loop, and just the power of the joy of just playing and just having a good time, and also the power of just pushing through to that joy, and just not having to really worry about anything when you're a kid.
Yeah, it's amazing. I found it really interesting because he started to talk about how when you build momentum, when you build power, when you start to be playful and have joy, it builds the enthusiasm, and then you find that with a bit of momentum, that power can push, maybe it is a hot tracks, a toy into a loop, but it starts to project it forward. It starts to give it direction. It starts to give it energy, and more tricks can happen, and kind of. So you think about it from a science point of view. I found it really kind of interesting, Pam, because he was kind of trying to show us, first of all, that he'd witnessed the conversation that you hadn't been privy to, that me and Carly had with Irene and Carly, her daughter in spirit, that day, about number plates and about signs and synchronicities. And we'd been laughing about the fact that the kids were doing tricks on us. And so really he was talking about a vehicle that does tricks. And he's talking about how those tricks make you feel playful and joyous and create excitement. And that sort of harnesses the energy in a way and builds power, pushing you forward. So these signs and synchronicities that we experience, that's what our loved ones are trying to do. They're trying to create this power, this energy, this enthusiasm where we all get excited, our spirits lift, our energies lift, because the playfulness and the joy and the sort of bizarreness sometimes of some of the connections suddenly like excite us and lift our energy, and that they can use the momentum of that energy to build more power and get more signs and synchronicities through, which in turn sometimes through the synchronicities can direct us and offer us a way forward, especially if we're in a space where we haven't had a lot of hope and we've been feeling really down. And I know you're going to share some of your amazing stories that have really pulled you out of those kind of dirgy sort of situations where you felt really down or really low and really needed something to eat. But what I also found interesting is he kind of implied at the end, that if he was a magician doing tricks on a stage, that the more magicians he gets, the more entertained we are, the more interested, the more we can hold our interest, really. And so I got the impression from what he was saying to us is that they love working as a team together. We love making tricks. We love building the enthusiasm, pulling you all in, because not only does it make us happy to see you joyous and enthusiastic, but it connects all of you in the living together, because suddenly you have built rapport, you've got a connection, and you've got a support network, and between you can feel quite inspired or kind of touched sometimes by these beautiful connections. Would you agree, Carly?
Yeah, I was wondering really what we could do more of, build that power and connect and sort of build that energy, if you like, from this side of the veil.
I think acknowledging them and kind of getting excited about them and sharing them is really, really important, because clearly the fact that we've been sharing those connections that day, it inspired Cameron to get involved in the conversation just like you would in life, which was kind of amazing, Carly. Kind of amazing. You've got some really more examples that you want to share. I love the one they were electrics. Come on, share with the viewers and everybody listening. Kind of what's Cameron done to you? How did you know he was still connected to you, even though you were deep in grief?
Right. So one of the first and most amazing things, it was pretty early on. So he passed in September. So by May would have been the first Mother's Day. So that was not very many months in, but I was the week of before Mother's Day, and particularly on the Friday, I was just really in a bad place and really depressed and sad, because, all I ever wanted to be was a mother, and I didn't feel like I was a mother anymore, and just really sad. And so I had been looking into mediums and watching a lot of YouTube videos of demonstrations and lessons and things like that. There's a lot of stuff online with helping parents heal, and a lot of mediums have sort of like webinars and instructional videos and things like that besides the just demonstrations. And so I was watching that kind of thing before I fell asleep, and I fell asleep with the phone like on my chest. And then at 4:30 in the morning, my phone came on by itself, tuned right into a video of Cameron when he was like 4, singing a song that he was practicing for his preschool, and we had recorded it. It was God Bless the USA, and played all the way through, and I was just shocked and amazed, and sort of maybe heard of things like that happening before, but never would have thought something that miraculous would have happened to me. And that just and that video was never in my feed before or after. It was saved on I had saved it on YouTube to share it with somebody, but I would have had to like click to my profile and click to the video in order to get it. And it, was never in my feed. So I just really believed that he had sent that to me to help me feel better for Mother's Day. And sure enough, that Mother's Day, I was fine. I was almost happy, because I knew that gave me some validation that he was still with me. And that made me happy.
There's two things there that are really interesting and significant. It happens on a milestone date that you were really dreading. So the day of Mother's Day, which was really key to you and you were really worried about, because you were feeling like, am I still a mother? You were questioning it, and it So it came to heal you. It came to inspire you, to give you reassurance in a way. But also, I love the fact that you know, some people say to me, when is a sign a sign? You clearly discerned that it couldn't be you. You hadn't rolled over on the phone. You hadn't switched it on. It had been laid on your chest because you'd fallen asleep with it in that position, but you hadn't activated it. You hadn't touched it. You had clearly checked that it hadn't been in your feed. You're aware that it wasn't something that, you know, could just switch on even if you had rolled over. You ruled out all the other possibilities. And when you ruled them all out, you'd come to the conclusion that this could only have been activated by a different energy or power in order to inspire you to feel better on a day that you were personally really dreading. Is that right?
That's absolutely correct. That's right. And that was just like, that sort of,
No, there is no other logical explanation, really, is there?
no,
Whichever
there
way
isn't. There isn't. It's like a miracle. That's really the biggest thing and the most positive. But it was early on too, so it sort of gave me that knowledge that he was there with me still pretty early on, but also led me to want to know more. Well, if he can do this, how am I gonna?
There's the nugget, Pam. There's the nugget. Not only has it inspired you and made you comfortable, it has inspired another connection. It's inspired your enthusiasm or driven you to think, what? I think you've gone looking. It's inspired your logic, it's inspired your rationale. It's strange, it's weird, it's kind of, you're drawing all sorts of conclusions, but it's caused you to go look for another connection. I love it. I love it. So there's those little, those kind of breadcrumbs that we were talking about. I'm going to go find more information. What did you find out next, Pam?
So we did one other electronic thing that happened was the day before I was going to go get his phone from the police department because they had it for a while, and I was looking through Pinterest, and I was like, and I said it to him in my head, I said, yeah, that would really be something if you could, if one of your rap artist guys that you really like would show up in my Pinterest, that would be crazy. Well, the next day when I went and was waiting, I was waiting for the police officers to bring back his phone. I opened Pinterest, and the very first picture on the Pinterest was the rap artist, one of the rap artists that I had asked about the day before. And so that was like number 2.
Which should really explain to the viewers, you were country and western and all things like retro. You're really into it, sorry, Pam.
No. And that was on Pinterest. It's all like decor and, recipes and things like that. Nothing even musical on Pinterest, not country or otherwise. And it was a picture of, somebody had a picture of him. And that was like the first, not only was it in my feed, it was like the first thing that popped up in my feed. So I don't know, maybe the phone could be listening to me, but I took it as a, but I don't think I said that out loud though. So I don't think the phone could read my thoughts, but because I was talking to him in my head when I said that would be really funny if that happened, and it happened.
So I love all those connections. It's amazing. Have you had any sort of experiences like that?
Well, I did actually. I had one with a number plate. So I had. I was driving up north up to Rotherham, which is about a 4-hour drive from where I am. To look at a camper van, a motorhome, and I was on the way up. I was unsure. It was a 20-year-old motorhome. I was sort of unsure as to whether I was going to buy it or not. So I asked on the way up. I asked my mum, who's in spirit. I said, if I should buy this camper van, give me a sign on my journey. You've got 4 hours, so I was quite demanding. And about 2 hours later, this car overtook me on the motorway, and my mum's name was Denise, and the number plate read D2NSE. So obviously in the UK, Kat, that's quite an unusual number plate. It would be probably owned by somebody else called Denise. But it's quite an unusual name to see it on a number plate as well on that journey when I just asked for a sign. So, yeah.
Bless you. I think the more that we share them, the more people have their experiences for themselves. And absolutely, I think there are things we have to discern and we have to rule out. Absolutely, we don't want to be like led blindly. But if they bring us joy, if they bring us happiness, if they create connection with the living and make our life better and sort of take away some of this grief, that has to be worthwhile. It has to be.
I agree. Thank you very much. I love to my face to sort of know that that connection is possible. Yeah, lovely.
Story. I've got a story actually. I'll share this before we leave because this is hilarious. I was once in a reading and I had this guy who was really into rap stars like Cameron, and he listed all. He was trying to list his songs to me, but because my vocabulary in my mind isn't sort of tuned to rap stars, he was getting frustrated with me because I couldn't list the whole of his list that he was very passionate about. And so he was all the way going me in this reading is kind of just, I'd lost myself in the reading and I said, hey, oh, stop it. You know, educate me about your songs. Educate me with me. To get information to you. Educate me. So better. We need to make this little lesson. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, in like saying I haven't got it in my vocabulary, he's going to have to teach me. A few days later, I'm driving along into London from Essex, and I don't know where I'd been, but I was driving. I was in that meditative state that you get in when you're kind of cruising on the motorway, and suddenly these words came into my head. Oh, Snoop Dogg, this man. You know, it's like at first I'm like thinking, what is this? Things. It's so I was like, oh, so I kind of pulled off the road at the next opportunity. I wrote down all these words that had been coming into my head. So I took this moment, I said, I miss Trinley. Your son is cracking me up. I was like, it's just these is upstairs. So he gave me a list. And he would emphasise the ones that he liked the most. And so I was able to then go back to his mum and say, I know this one must be one of his favourites. So it's kind of, I think these things are really fun. And I think, you know, it's good for us to share them because it shows how they can inspire different ways of connection. And they will teach us. And sometimes we don't have all the answers. But if we stay open-minded, then sometimes the truths can just fall into our laps, and that's really a really beautiful thing. So I think we'll end up there. Pam, thank you so much. Carly, thank you for sharing your time with us as well. I love you and leave you, but talk to you today.